The tide had turned, literally. As the current in the Shimonoseki Strait shifted in Minamoto's favor, amidst the volley of arrows and close-quarter samurai combat, a grandmother wrapped her arm around a trembling 6-year-old boy. Antoku, the Emperor of Japan. She whispered not comfort, but, "In the depths of the ocean lies our capital." Moments later, they vanished beneath the waves. Hello, and welcome to Impactful Moments, where we explore some of the most, you guessed it, impactful moments in human history. In this video, we'll discuss the Genpei War and the dawn of the shogunate, Japan's centuries-long military government. Much of what we know, or we think we know, about this war comes from the Heike Monogatari, an epic retelling blending history, drama, and outright legend. When cross-checked with chronicles such as the Azuma Kagami, archaeology, and later historical analysis, a clearer picture emerges. What follows is the story historians largely agree on, with some legend peppered in. For much of ancient history, the islands that became Japan developed in relative isolation. It wasn't until around the 3rd century CE that continental technologies, belief systems, and political structures began filtering in from Korea and China, helping the islands emerge from their Bronze Age, known as the Yayoi period. As these influences spread, small family clans, or uji, consolidated into larger regional powers, with one lineage, the Yamato, rising to the top. By the 8th century, the Yamato court had established itself as the central authority. Borrowing heavily from Chinese political models, it built an imperial bureaucracy, codified laws known as the Ritsuryo system, and intertwined Buddhism with state identity. A permanent capital was founded at Nara, or Haijokyo, in 710. But competing aristocrats, wealthy temples, and powerful monasteries eroded imperial control. Hoping to stabilize politics, the court relocated in 794 to Heian-kyo, modern Kyoto. While Heian became the center of a flourishing court culture, in practice, power shifted to one dominant noble family, the Fujiwara. Through strategic marriages and regencies over child emperors, they governed from behind the throne, in what became known as Sekkan Seiji. In the late 11th century, Emperor Shirakawa tried to break Fujiwara dominance. He abdicated his throne, yet continued ruling from behind the scenes, beginning a new system called the Insei, or cloistered government, where retired emperors continued exercising authority. While effective, it created rival power centers and intensified imperial succession disputes that would soon destabilize the realm. While the court focused on Heian, imperial oversight in the countryside weakened. Vast private estates, or shoen, were exempted from taxation and government control. Owned by absentee nobles called kuge who lived safely in the capital, these lands still required local enforcement to protect and manage them. And so, nobles increasingly relied on professional warriors, drawn from provincial elites. These fighters gained wealth, status, and even independence, evolving into a new military class and one of Japan's most iconic identities, the samurai. Among these warrior houses, two, having descended from former imperial princes, would separate themselves as the most powerful, the Taira and the Minamoto. With imperial authority weakening and the warrior class rising, tensions between the Taira and the Minamoto sharpened. The Hogen and Heiji disturbances of 1156 and 1159 marked the first time that warriors decisively shaped an imperial succession. In Hogen, both clans split their loyalties, backing either Emperor Go-Shirakawa or the retired Insei Emperor Sutoku. By Heiji, however, a clearer divide had formed, as the Minamoto captured Go-Shirakawa, rebelling against the growing dominance of Taira no Kiyomori, the powerful head of the Taira clan, while he was away from the capital. Kiyomori returned to crush the uprising. Minamoto no Yoshitomo, the family's head, was killed, but many of his sons were spared and exiled, a move that would be monumentally important, as will be discussed. From there, Kiyomori emerged supreme. rising within the government, marrying his daughter into the imperial line, and, through his expanding and concerning influence, provoking the failed Shishigatani assassination plot of 1177. In 1180, tensions finally boiled over. Kiyomori forced an abdication of the emperor and installed his baby grandson, Antoku, in his stead. Furious that a 2-year-old was named emperor, Prince Mochihito, a son of the retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa, declared himself the rightful heir, and, seeing the general rising frustration with Taira tyranny, sent out a call to arms across Japan. Minamoto no Yorimasa joined Prince Mochihito, raising forces in his name, but the plot was discovered and the Taira struck first. Driven from Kyoto, the Minamoto made their stand at Uji, destroying a bridge to slow the Taira pursuit, but the Taira forced a crossing anyway. With defeat certain, Yorimasa committed seppuku, ritual Japanese suicide to avoid dishonorable capture, and Mochihito was killed soon after, yet his call for rebellion had already spread far beyond him. In the east, Minamoto no Yoritomo, one of the sons spared after Heiji 20 years earlier, lived quietly under the watch of Hojo Tokimasa, a Taira vassal tasked with keeping him in check. Yoritomo married Tokimasa's daughter, and when Mochihito's appeal reached them, Tokimasa switched sides. The alliance's first campaign ended poorly at Ishibashiyama in 1180, but Yoritomo escaped to Kamakura, in the fiercely independent Kanto region, where he steadily consolidated control. The once exiled Minamoto heir was fast becoming a true power. Kiyomori dispatched Taira no Korimori to crush him, but the army, either from panic of encountering an unexpectedly large force, or, as the Heike Monogatari claims, spooked by a sudden flock of seabirds, retreated at Fujigawa, and the Minamoto continued to rise. Then, in 1181, Kiyomori died, leaving command to his far less capable son Munemori. Additionally, new contentious fronts emerged. Minamoto no Yukiie, Yoritomo's uncle, attempted to challenge the Taira, but was beaten back at Tsuno Matagawa and Yahagigawa, and a rising independent Minamoto leader, Kiso Yoshinaka, began building a force of his own, adding a volatile third party to the conflict. But then, famine. Famine was nothing new to Japan, but the Yowa famine hit right in the middle of this power struggle, pushing the Taira and Minamoto in opposite directions. In the West, the Taira deepened resentment by demanding grain from struggling farmers to keep the capital fed. In the East, Yoritomo tightened his grip by promising order, protection, and relief, often gaining land and loyalty in return. He even proposed a truce. The Taira would rule the West and the Minamoto the East, but the Taira refused, and by 1183, the fighting resumed. Remember the independent Minamoto Kiso Yoshinaka that I just mentioned? Convinced that he was the true leader of the clan, he marched on Heian, luring the Taira into a trap at the Kurikara Pass. There, his small force surrounded the Taira army and, according to legend, sent oxen with flaming torches charging into their lines. Whatever the exact details, the larger Taira were routed, and Yoshinaka marched into Heian as the Taira fled the city with their baby emperor. But Yoshinaka's harsh tactics angered the capital's nobles, monks, and townspeople, and Insei Emperor Go-Shirakawa, quietly corresponding with Yoritomo, began organizing resistance. Furious, Yoshinaka crushed any opposition, burning parts of the capital and placed Go-Shirakawa under house arrest. While Kiso Yoshinaka was carving his rogue path, Yoritomo's also formerly exiled brothers, Yoshitsune and Noriyori, remained loyal. When news of Yoshinaka's chaos arrived, Yoritomo sent his brothers to put it down. The Minamoto army marched on Kyoto and met Yoshinaka's forces at Awazu in 1184. While brave on the battlefield, Yoshinaka's antics had alienated him, and no one came to his aid. He was defeated and killed, and the Kiso problem was resolved. Meanwhile, Yoritomo's quiet correspondence with the retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa paid off. Once freed from Yoshinaka's control, Go-Shirakawa formally acknowledged Yoritomo's military authority in the Kanto, granting him rule and administration in the region. With legitimacy secured in the east, the Minamoto refocused on the fleeing Taira, who, on paper, may have still held the advantage. They dominated the seas and knew every inlet along Japan's western provinces. But Yoshitsune and Noriyori used surprise and ingenuity, turning the Taira's advantages against them in 3 iconic battles that kept the Taira on the run. At Ichinotani in 1184, Yoshitsune led a force straight down what was believed to be an unclimbable cliff behind the Taira camp. Struck from the rear, the Taira panicked, fleeing to their ships and taking refuge on the small island of Kojima, literally, small island, using the surrounding waters as a false sense of security. At the Battle of Kojima, Noriyori learned of a hidden ridge exposed at low tide, exposing the island. Commander Sasaki Moritsuna crossed the shallow water, appearing to ride horses across the sea. Once again, the Taira panicked, abandoning their position and retreated to Yashima. There at Yashima in 1185, a violent storm made sailing nearly impossible. Yoshitsune forced a small group across anyway, lighting massive bonfires to trick the Taira into believing his full army had arrived. Terrified, the Taira fled once more to their ships. As Noriyori occupied Kyushu to the south, near the Taira camp, Yoshitsune capitalized on the momentum. Seeing the tide turn, neutral lords and sailors began flocking to the quote-unquote winning side, providing the Minamoto with the ships and men they badly needed. With this new fleet, Yoshitsune sailed to the narrow Kanmon Strait, off Dan-no-ura, where the 2 forces finally met. Less about traditional naval warfare and more about arrows and shipboarding, the battle quickly devolved into brutal close-quarters combat. At first, the Taira used the tides to their advantage, but as the current shifted, the Minamoto pressed in. Then came disaster. A Taira commander, Taguchi Shigeyoshi, defected, revealing the emperor's ship. As the Minamoto closed in, the child emperor Antoku, his grandmother, and the regalia they carried, the sacred sword, which was lost forever, and the jewel, which was later recovered, plunged into the sea. Many Taira nobles followed them into the water. Others were cut down or captured. By the end of Dan-no-ura, Taira no Munomori was taken and later executed. The Taira lineage was effectively destroyed, and the Minamoto had decisively won the war. With the Taira gone, the Minamoto now held unchecked military power. For the next 7 years, Yoritomo stayed in the east, testing a new political order, one where warriors, not nobles, controlled the land. He established order across Japan that the imperial government was unable to accomplish, and pushed the emperor for a title that would make his political order official. Only after Go Shirakawa died in 1192 did the court finally relent, granting Yoritomo the ancient title of Sai Toshugun, great general who subdues barbarians. History, however, remembers it more simply as the Shogun. Enjoying so far? Give us a like and subscribe. It helps more than you know and keeps this kind of content coming. Following the Genpei War, Japan underwent a fundamental metamorphosis. Power no longer rested in Heian, but shifted to the Bakufu, or the tent government in Kamakura. By installing his own military officials, the Shugo, or provincial constables, and Jito, estate stewards, Yoritomo effectively bypassed the ancient court bureaucracy. Contrary to the old adage, in Japan, the sword truly became mightier than the pen. Martial discipline replaced the court as the social currency, laying the foundations for what later generations would call Bushido, the samurai code. But this new stability was built on deep suspicion. Yoritomo's ruthless pursuit of the seemingly loyal Yoshitsune, and later his mistrust of Noriyori, helped normalize a culture of strategic paranoia at the top of the military government. In this world, loyalty might have been rewarded, but it was never fully trusted. Even the northern Fujiwara in Hiraizume were attacked despite delivering Yoshitsune's head to Yoritomo as an appeasement, as they were seen as a threat to Yoritomo's power. As fear tightened around the warrior class, honor became an extreme, sometimes lethal burden. If betrayal could always be suspected, then seppuku, ritual suicide, emerged as the ultimate declaration that one's devotion was beyond question. When Yoritomo died in 1199, his heirs were too weak to resist the ambitions of his wife's family, the Hojo, who steadily stripped them of real authority and ruled as regents through puppet shoguns. Within a few decades, the Minamoto were gone at the top of the government, undone by the very paranoia that meant to preserve them. When the imperial court tried to fill this power vacuum, it sparked the Jokyu War of 1221, But the emperor was crushed and exiled, his allies scattered, and imperial power was further reduced, while the Bakufu emerged stronger as Japan's dominant authority. The Bakufu established by Yoritomo was far more than a temporary wartime solution. It became the political template that would shape Japan for nearly 7 centuries. From the turbulence of the Warring States, Sengoku Jidai period, to the 250 Edo years of Great Peace under the Tokugawa shogunate, the blueprint remained the same. The emperor reigned as a sacred symbol, while the shogun truly ruled. This military-led system did not truly break until 1868 with the Meiji Restoration, making the Genpei War a major and near-permanent turning point in Japan's storied history. Beyond politics, the Genpei War reshaped the very DNA of Japanese values. The virtues demanded of samurai, loyalty, stoicism, and honor placed above life itself, helped blend the grit and discipline of the battlefield with older traditions of poetry, refinement, and courtly aesthetics, a mindset that still lingers. It's visible in Japan's commitment to precision, expressed through the obsessive perfection of the Miyazaki mangoes and Wagyu cows to wildly efficient business systems like Kaizen that revolutionized global quality movements such as lean production and Six Sigma. Perhaps the most visible legacy of the Genpei War is the global legend of the samurai. Once provincial enforcers, they evolved into one of modern culture's most romanticized archetypes. From the films of Akira Kurosawa to the inspiration for the Star Wars Jedis, even borrowing the name from the samurai film genre Jidaigeki, the echoes of Genpei still endure. The fall of Taira and the tragic fate of the Minamoto brothers created one of history's great epics, a story of loyalty and betrayal, glory and impermanence, proving that while political powers crumble, the legend of the warrior endures. In shaping the structure of Japanese society and culture, the Genpei War didn't just decide who ruled, it transformed who the Japanese would become. I hope you enjoyed this video and found this period in history both informative and enlightening. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope you can join us for another video. Thanks for watching.